Welcome everyone to this SAS webinar. My name is Tilde Persson and I'm an intern at the Swedish-American Chamber of Commerce in San Francisco and Silicon Valley. And this webinar is co-hosted by the Swedish-American Chamber of Commerce in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., New England, Florida, Georgia, and Chicago. So the Swedish-American Chamber of Commerce is a member-driven nonprofit organization that supports Scandinavian companies looking to expand to the US market. Our chambers have a range of members, both individuals looking to celebrate cultural traditions with the Swedish community, but also corporate members looking to expand their business with the help of our network. So during this webinar, we will learn more about what lies ahead for SAS as the company is about to exit Chapter 11 and join a new alliance. SAS General Manager Jasmin Utter will give you a presentation of what is next, an update on their loyalty program, EuroBonus, as well as SAS sustainability efforts. And Jasmin will give you an answer to the questions that some of you have submitted. And if you have any questions during this webinar, feel free to use the Q&A chat. We will save the questions till the end of the presentation, and you will not be able to turn on your microphone or camera. So I will let you take it from here, Jasmin. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me okay. Perfect. So, so my name is Jasmin. I'm responsible for Scandinavian Airlines here in the Americas. I have the pleasure of giving you an update today about what's happening at the company. I've certainly received a lot of questions, particularly about the EuroBonus program, and I'll get back to those. So if you can have the next slide, please. So what I plan to cover today is why did we go into Chapter 11 and where are we now? But also looking ahead, what is the strategy? What does the network look like for SAS here in the Americas? And then, of course, the shift over from Star Alliance to SkyTeam. I will talk about EuroBonus, but also as well as the lounges, and a little bit about sustainability. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So I'm sure you know that SAS has been around for a long time. It was in August in 1946 that we were established when the 3 Scandinavian states decided that it was a better idea to have one joint airline instead of 3 different ones. And actually, already in September of 1946 is when we started our very first flight to the United States. This picture is from that flight, and it departed from Bromma Flygplats to LaGuardia, I think. Since then, we've had many firsts, one of them being the first airline to fly to Los Angeles via the polar route, but also the first one to fly over the North Pole to Tokyo, etc., etc. Over the recent years, we've seen many new developments here in the States. We've opened up several new routes. San Francisco is one of them. Miami was another, Boston was another, etc. The next one that's being planned right now is Atlanta, which will open June 17th. One thing that's typical for an airline is that it's very susceptible to external factors. So if there is a recession or if there's any kind of influence on people's behavior, that will be felt almost immediately in the airline industry. In the past, we've seen significant events such as 9/11, some of the viruses that we've had, bird flu, etc., have had a significant impact on aviation. But that they all pale in comparison to the COVID pandemic. So if you move on to the next slide, please. Almost, I'd say, not overnight, but it was pretty much from one week to the next, travel just stopped. And we had to cease our operations. The decline in travel was significant, and you can see that on this slide. It is from Financial Times. It's not one of our graphs, and it doesn't show the whole what happened during the entire pandemic, but it's a good illustration of what happened the first few months. Everything basically just disappeared overnight. We had some debt going into this situation, but obviously, in order for us to be able to survive, we took on more debt. And that is the primary reason why we chose to enter Chapter 11. If we were to extrapolate this curve to drag it out to where we are today on a global scale, things have not yet turned back to what they were prior to COVID. Here in the States, it's very much back to levels that exceed 19, actually, in terms of the number of passengers who pass through any of the US airports. But that is not entirely the case in Asia, for instance. So for us, in order to be able to survive as a company, we had to take on no debt, even though the governments tried to support us and many other companies in that situation. But due to this, it became untenable, the financial situation, quite frankly. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So we decided in July 2022 that we needed to clean up our balance sheet, basically, to restructure the financial situation. And because we operate also in the United States, Chapter 11 was a tool that was available to us. We looked at different potential solutions for how to address the financial situation and found that Chapter 11 was the one that would work best for us. There are many benefits with Chapter 11, and one is that you can continue to operate and you retain your the decision power of your company, while you also have the ability to restructure your company and the agreements and what have you at the same time. So even though there was, of course, some media attention, and we got some questions from our customers and our travel agent partners, etc., we continued to fly and provide the same service even during our Chapter 11 process. So what's happened during this, since we filed, is that we renegotiated a lot of our deals, such as the union deals, the aircraft deals, etc., and reached new agreement levels, new cost levels. We went into a process of finding new ownership. As you know, the Scandinavian states have had a significant share of the ownership of SAS. The new winning consortium was announced in August last year, and I'm sure you recognize that Air France-KLM is one of them. The amount of media that this has gotten would perhaps lead you to believe that they are the main stakeholder in the new company. That is not the case. The main one is a US company called Castle Lake, who've bought 32% of SAS. The second largest owner will be the Danish state, that has 30%. Air France-KLM's share in this is slightly less than 20%. So we signed the agreement, and that the new ownership will take place, or the transition to the new ownership will take place during this year. And then another big milestone was in March of this year, when the courts of the Southern District of New York approved our Chapter 11 plan, and that we were approved to exit Chapter 11. So by then we had been in Chapter 11 for almost a year, or just above, slightly longer than a year and a half. And that was a little bit longer than we anticipated, because of the structure of the company, that was the main reason why it took slightly longer. So that was a major milestone, and as things are right now, we expect to emerge from Chapter 11 at the end of the first half of this year. So hopefully we'll be able to announce very soon exactly when that's going to happen. And another major milestone was when we signed a new agreement with SkyTeam, which happened just over a month ago. So with that means that we will be leaving Star Alliance, and I'll get back to that in a minute. Let's move to the next one, please. So looking ahead, our strategic priorities have been during this process and will continue to be for some time to continue to reduce our costs significantly and strengthen the balance sheet. In addition to that, we are looking to, or we will continue to improve the whole operational side, the platform, how the utilization of aircraft and crew, etc., to develop our fleet, our network, product. We have several new exciting offerings that we will be launching. But also working on digital transformation, introducing AI more and more, and the predictive, I forget the name right now, but also delivering on other various major improvements on the customer experience. And then the third area is investing in sustainability, and to continue to position us as a driving force in sustainable aviation and in the transition towards net zero emissions, which is the industry goal for 2050. So if we move on to the next slide, please. We will thus continue to be the leading airline in Scandinavia. Our main hubs are still the three Scandinavian capitals. And we currently have more than 7 million people who've signed up to be members of our loyalty program. We fly on more than close to 300 routes. We have, on a normal day, somewhere between 800 and 1,000 departures to more than 150 destinations, etc. And I just want to mention, because there's something I get asked every now and then, and that is if we have any Boeing aircraft. We have invested in a new fleet, and we have, since some time ago, only Airbus aircraft in our fleet. Some of them are leased, some of them are owned. Next slide, please. And I mentioned that we have started a number of new routes to the United States. And the United States, or I should say the Americas, is a hugely important market to SAS. And we see that the market is growing in importance. So that's why we've decided to invest more. So I'm going to go through the routes that we have, just to clarify, because I saw that there were some questions regarding the routes. So we have flown to Newark, outside of New York, for several years, more than 30 years actually. We have daily services between Newark and Copenhagen, Oslo and Arlanda respectively. That will continue. That is the plan. In addition to that, we have added, currently we have 2 departures a day between JFK, which is on the other side of New York, and Copenhagen. So that's in addition to Newark. That doesn't mean that we're going to remove the Newark flights necessarily. These have the different catchment areas. So the plan right now is to maintain both. We have upgraded or added more capacity on Boston to Copenhagen. So we have daily service with an Airbus 350. It used to be a narrow body aircraft in the past. We have 5 weekly flights from Chicago to Copenhagen. We have daily flights from Los Angeles. We have 6 weekly from San Francisco. We have 6 weekly also from Washington Dulles. We will have daily during the summer traffic program from Atlanta. And in the summer, we also fly to Toronto. and that's 7 days a week. So that's a split service between Arlanda and Copenhagen. And then in addition to that, during winter, we fly to Miami. And that's also a split service. So it's split between Arlanda and Copenhagen. So one route that you don't see is the Chicago-Arlanda route, which we discontinued a while ago. And the reason for that is because there just wasn't enough demand to sustain both routes out of Chicago after we decided to move from Star Alliance to SkyTeam, because that means that we will no longer be working with United Airlines, which is one of the bigger reasons why we had daily services out of Chicago. Next slide, please. So moving on to SkyTeam. So SkyTeam is an alliance, just like Star Alliance. There's another alliance also that's called One World. So there are 3 major alliances. We will be joining the alliance as of September 1st. So we'll be staying in Star Alliance until August 31st. So from September 1st, everything that we have today will basically be available in SkyTeam. So they have pretty much the same as Star Alliance, meaning there are a number of carriers that are members, 19 to be exact. And through that collaboration, our customers will be able to enjoy pretty much the same benefits. And by that, I mean a global network, connectivity, seamless travel, etc., etc. Regarding EuroBonus, that is SAS's loyalty program. It is not linked to Star Alliance. So those of you who are members of EuroBonus, nothing will change for you. You will keep your points. Your tier levels will be the same. So you will not be downgraded if you have a high tier level, for instance. And you will be recognized in the SkyTeam as members. And you will also get access to lounges and other priority services throughout the travel chain with SkyTeam. Let's move to the next slide, please. I mentioned Delta. So Delta is our new partner in the United States. So as from January 15, it is possible to book SAS flights in combination with Delta Airlines. So through this agreement, you as our customers can travel from various interior points in the United States or the Caribbean or Latin America via one of the hubs, such as Atlanta or Boston or JFK, etc., and connect with an SAS flight for travel to Scandinavia or other points that SAS flies to. Next slide, please. As for the lounges, we will be continuing to offer lounges also in the future. So we have our own lounges in Scandinavia. All of those are SAS lounges. In the Americas, we have one in Chicago and we have one at Newark. I expect to see some changes in terminals and lounges going forward. But as things are right now, in New York at JFK, we do operate out of Terminal 1. And our customers who are in business class are able to utilize the Lufthansa Business Lounge while we are still members of Star Alliance. Once we exit, it'll be the Air France Lounge that you can access. In Boston, it is, for now, the Lufthansa Lounge. In Los Angeles, it's the Star Lounge. In San Francisco, it's the United Lounge. In Toronto, it's the Air Canada Lounge. In DC, it's both Lufthansa and Turkish. And Atlanta, we have yet to announce which lounge you will have access to. But as I said, expect to see some changes in this as we go along. And these changes will be announced through the normal channels. And I will certainly make sure to convey this information through the chamber so you can publish in your newsletters as well. next slide. So with that, I plan on moving on to sustainability. But before I do, I want to check if there are any questions regarding any of the things that I have spoken about. I can see one question, and that is if there will be any service between Arlanda and Washington Dulles. As of now, that is not something that we are looking at. Are there any other questions right now? It doesn't. Yep. Wait a minute. Let's see. No. Yes. Are we looking at West Coast? Yes. So Los Angeles and San Francisco, no changes are planned. Might be some smaller changes with the schedule, that is normal, but we are not planning on any changes in terms of the service. Lifetime Gold, yes, so no changes in the Lifetime Gold plan as well. So if you have that today, you will be able to enjoy that also in the future. And then there's a question regarding EuroBonus miles during COVID. Okay, so Amy, please send me an email after, and I will have someone look into your situation with regarding your points. Code share flights. Not sure what the question is exactly. Code share. Yeah, so what I can say there regarding code share flights is that we are working on an agreement with Delta for code share flights. And I hope that that will be launched in the very near future. And access to Delta lounges, I hope that too will be available in the very near future. And the reason why I'm being slightly vague is because negotiations are ongoing. So that's why I'm not able to give you direct or straight answers to those questions. You're welcome, Amy. Any more questions? Delta medallion. Okay, so Eric, I'm assuming you want to carry over to EuroBonus. Contact me after. I see my email address has been posted. So please contact me after and we'll look into that for you. So what I'll do, please continue to ask questions. And in the meantime, I'll continue with the sustainability information. Yes, so as I said, this is one of our strategic focus areas, to continue to develop in this area, to strive towards the goals of net zero emissions by 2050, and to be the driving force in this area. So we've made several, we have many initiatives and made quite a few investments in order to get to that point. Being an airline, the main contributing factors for emissions are the operations. So that is the aircraft and the fuel that you use to fly them with. So that's 90%, 95% maybe of our emissions come from the actual aircraft. So we have invested in a new fleet, as I mentioned before. We have a very young fleet. We have one of the youngest and most modern fleets of all the European carriers as a consequence. So just by doing that and by having more modern aircraft and more modern engines, that's a reduction in CO2 emissions by 15 to 30%, depending on aircraft. So that's a significant reduction in itself. But then in addition to that, we've looked at everything on board each aircraft. So the fabric that's being used, and we removed all the newspapers and magazines. We removed tax-free and all that stuff to make the aircraft as light as possible. Because the lighter it is, the less fuel is required and thus the less emissions. So every single thing that you see on board an SAS aircraft, and down to the swizzle sticks, have been evaluated from, is it necessary at all? And can they be made out of material that is more sustainable? So just as an example, the fabric that we use for the carpet and the seats, that is all with sustainable material that is cleaned in a sustainable way. So we also work with partners and providers to make sure that we do things as sustainable as possible in terms of, for instance, cleaning. So that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is making sure that we fuel as sustainably as possible. This is a bit tricky because there isn't that much sustainable aviation fuel available. So we have partnered up with several providers. Neste in Finland is one of those. Gevo in the States is another one. Vattenfall, BP, etc. In Scandinavia, to get access to as much sustainable aviation fuel as possible. It's expensive, and the reason why it's expensive is because there isn't that much available, and basically everyone needs it. So, and also the challenge with sustainable aviation fuel is that it's made out of something that already exists. Cooking oil is an example. So for it to be viewed as sustainable, fully sustainable, it needs to be made out of something that's been produced in a sustainable way. And there are many McDonald's around the world, but there aren't enough of them to produce all the oil for the French fries that we need to fuel our aircraft. So we will need to produce synthetic sustainable aviation fuel in the future in order to be able to shift over to more sustainable fuel. We can fly with up to 50% sustainable aviation fuel already today in our engines. We're certified to be able to do so. We are far below that level, and that has only to do with the fact that we can't get our hands on enough of this fuel. Here in the States, we have in the Inflation Reduction Act, there is an incentive for producers to produce sustainable aviation fuel by introducing tax credits. We think that that's a good way, a good approach. So therefore, the United States is becoming more important to us when it comes to fueling aircraft here, with fueling more sustainable aviation fuel in the United States. So those are two main big things. And I talked about the fleet and how we replaced it. And that is with today's technology. Obviously, going forward, the aircraft will have to be designed in a different way. So you'll see on the right-hand side, it says moving toward electric aircraft. We are in collaboration with the Swedish company Heart Aerospace, based in Gothenburg. They are developing the first electric aircraft, and as you might be able to tell from the picture, they're on the smaller side. So we plan on using these on domestic routes primarily. First flight is scheduled for 2028. So in addition to that, we are also collaborating with Airbus to look into bigger sized aircraft. Changing from today's long-haul aircraft, such as the one that you see in the top left-hand corner, over to something completely new, that's some years off. The technology just does not exist today to change over to a different type of aircraft, a different generation aircraft, for it to be fueled in a similar manner as the ones that I showed on the slide. Now, in addition to the aircraft and fuel, we've looked at everything else as well, such as the food that we serve on board. We've shifted from more locally produced so that we don't have to ship food around from various countries, that it's more ecological, that it's more healthy options. We do try to recycle as much as we can. When it comes to food and beverage, of course, there are limitations as to what one can do according to the national legislation and handling food waste. But where it's possible, we do recycle, such as aluminum cans, etc. Also, cleaning aircraft, we've both the interior and exterior, we've changed how we do that and reduced the use of water significantly. It's 98% less water usage. The amenity kit that you have now, if you travel in business, is all sustainable, etc., etc. And it's not just on board the aircraft. It's also the little vehicles that you see drive around the airport that has the SAS logo on them. We're switching them over to electric. In our offices, we've made a lot of changes there as well to make sure that we are fully sustainable. So it's throughout the entire chain. So we, of course, have all the necessary approvals and stamps, such as EuroBonus, etc., and work very purposefully with making sure that we reduce our emissions. And you might ask why? Because the aircraft industry represents 2 to 3% on a global scale of the global emissions. And while that is not that much today, the projection is that it's going to increase, if nothing is done, up to 25%. And the reason for that is because of an increased wealth in parts of the world. And the inhabitants there in these countries, such as Brazil, India, etc., will adopt the same kind of standard of living and way of living as we're accustomed to, and that's going to drive travel. And also all the buying online, a lot of that is transported through airlines. So that's the reason why we're going to see an increase up to 25% if we don't do anything. So it's very important that we focus on this already now. Next slide, please. So I talked about our collaboration with Airbus, but also Heart Aerospace. And we just a few months ago announced that we have entered a new collaboration with Airbus Swedavia, which is a Swedish airport authority. Avinor is the Norwegian equivalent, and Vattenfall, which is an energy company in Sweden, to look into not just the aircraft and what is it going to look like in the future, but also what will the infrastructure look like. So today with SAF, we don't really need to change anything with the infrastructure because the chemical composition of SAF is identical to fossil fuel. But if we move over to hydrogen, which is most likely going to be the new energy source for aircraft, our infrastructure will have to be completely different. Not just how do you get it to the airport, but how do you fuel it? What does the airport need to look like with the gates and everything? So it's a very big process and project to review the entire structure of the airports and travel in the future. I think if we go to the next slide, I think that is almost the end. So I hope that you feel that if you travel with SAS, that you've made a good choice, not just because of the services that we provide, but also from a sustainability perspective. In addition to what I've talked about, there are things that you can do as well. If you're a corporate and you want to reduce your Scope 3 emissions and make sure that your employees travel even more sustainably, you can sign up to a corporate sustainability program that we developed and launched a few years ago, where we buy sustainable aviation fuel on your behalf. No money goes to SAS. This goes directly to the producer. And we will provide documentation, and it's also audited by KPMG. And you will be provided with the documentation needed so you can use this for your reporting. In addition to that, we offer a ticket type for biofuel if you want to buy that. And there's also a travel pass, which is like a punch card that you can buy, which includes biofuel. And then in addition to that, if you travel, if you buy a ticket with SAS, you can go in on our webpage and buy buy biofuel in blocks of 20 minutes. It's 100 Swedish per 20 minutes. So if you're flying from anywhere in the States or Scandinavia, it's going to be quite expensive if you want to buy for the whole trip. But even buying it in blocks of certain minutes will take you to several steps closer to being more sustainable. Should anyone be interested in the corporate sustainability program, again, use my email and we'll help you set that up. That was it. And with that, I'd like to welcome you on board SAS. Hope to see you soon again. I think there might be a final using Delta. Will there be a through fare price? Yes, that is the plan in the future. So I think that you will see some of that already today, Joanne. Should you think of anything in the middle of the night, you wake up and you realize that you forgot to ask your questions, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. I'll try to support you or I'll answer your questions as best as I can. And Joanne, yes, the session was recorded, so you can go back and listen to the first 15 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jasmin, for the presentation and the updates. And thank you to all of the participants. We hope that you got an answer to your questions. Have a nice rest of your day.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.